It's chaos in New York City. Hundreds, deathly ill with radiation sickness, are overflowing from hospitals, many of them raving about seeing strange glowing eggs across the city. Disappearances are at an all-time high. Every telephone pole and street lamp is covered in missing posters. Police phone trees are lit up with hundreds of thousands of calls, claiming to see impossible creatures skittering in the dark. Everyone is desperate and afraid as the clocks tick closer to the eggs hatching and all hell truly breaking loose. The Big Apple feels like it's about to explode. How did this happen? And can it be stopped? It's been years since the monstrous Choo Choo Charles escaped from Araniram Island before being empowered by the US military with radiation, making him even more large, durable, and monstrous. Choo Choo Charles spent days devastating New Jersey and then New York before the military brought his reign of terror to a standstill. They rebuilt their cities and fell back into the comfortable rhythms of life, having no idea the horror that's waiting for them. And it's almost time for that horror to hatch. It begins with a group of NYC sewer workers descending into the huge, filthy pipes beneath the city's streets after hearing one too many reports of backed-up toilets and funny-tasting tap water. They walk as a team in full hazmat suits, complete with gas masks, using waterproof flashlights to navigate their way. They split off into teams of 3, knowing they could cover more ground that way. One 3-man team takes pipe C6, wading through hip-deep sewage. They'd all grown up on tales of alligators in the New York City sewers, an amusing urban myth. Something much more dangerous is lurking there now. The point man for Team C6 scans his flashlight beam across the pipe, and his chest tightens as he sees something glow back from the murk. Eggs. Huge, multicolored eggs. Hundreds, if not thousands of them. They weren't like eggs any of them had seen before. Were they moving? Oh God, is whatever is inside those eggs alive? The eggs begin to shake, cracks forming across the surface of their glass-like shells. The point man, drenched with sweat under his hazmat suit, turns to signal to his team, but they're already gone. Only ripples and stains of red in the water. Where have they gone? He hears the eggs rattling again, and the unmistakable sound of needly legs against concrete. Saliva drips from above. He looks up, sees glowing eyes in the dark, and screams. Meanwhile, across the city, the residents of a cheap tenement building are going through hell. Over the previous several weeks, they've been getting sick. Headaches, fever, fatigue, nausea, hallucinations. They've been seeing pharmacists and taking medicine, but nothing seems to make it better. Nobody would even think to diagnose them with acute radiation sickness, the kind of sickness that would only come from chronic exposure to highly radioactive metal, like, for example, eggs laid by a horrific radioactive monster. When he's worried that his ailing residents are going to contact a lawyer and sue him, the tenement slumlord turns up to take a look around. What is the cause of the mysterious sickness afflicting his tenants? Carbon monoxide? Asbestos in the walls? Something in the air? He knows that the sickest tenants are the ones who live on the bottom floor, so naturally, he checks the basement first. He turns on the lights and climbs down into the basement. Everything seems in order, until he notices a strange, foul-smelling breeze. He looks to the corner and sees a loose sheet of cardboard lying against the wall. When he moves the cardboard, he sees a huge hole in the brickwork, like something smashed through it with a sledgehammer. On the other side, something is glowing. He takes out his phone and shines the flashlight inside to get a look. Eggs. So many eggs, of various sizes and colors. Being this close to them, the slumlord can feel his face tingling and burning. Is that heat coming off of the eggs? Or something worse? This must be what's making all his tenants so sick. But worse, the second he moves the cardboard, the eggs start to move. They rattle and pulse visibly. He can see something moving inside them through the translucent, technicolor shells. As a crack crawls up one of them, he feels a bead of sweat crawling down his temple. Miles away, a high-speed subway train rattles down the tracks of a tight New York City subway tunnel. Everyone inside does what they can to keep to themselves and not attract too much attention. Some read books or the newspaper, others listen to music. As the train rattles and whines, the lights on the inside of the carriage sometimes momentarily glitch out. Nobody pays any mind to it. It's to be expected. They've all got places to be. So the tensions begin to rise when suddenly the train grinds to a halt in the middle of the deep, dark tunnel, and all the lights go off and stay off. People begin rising from their seats, murmuring with worry, turning on the lights of their phones and trying to make something out in this sudden, unsettling dark. and without the rattle of the moving train, they start to hear other things going on in the tunnel. A rattling, a squelching, like something wriggling in a bathtub full of slime. It makes all their skins crawl. The train doesn't start to move again, but suddenly the lights flicker back on. Even grown men scream when they see what's out the windows. Hundreds of multicolored eggs fuse to the walls. Their train seems to have driven through the middle of a giant egg sack, and now they're trapped in it, wedged between thousands of disgusting eggs. And the movement and heat of the train seem to be waking them up. Across the city, NYPD cops are investigating a series of strange disappearances beneath an old and mostly unused bridge. 10 have gone missing in the past 2 weeks. Some homeless, some people who were just passing through, all gone without a trace. Potentially expecting a violent altercation with one or even more armed and dangerous combatants, they've called in a special SWAT unit to spearhead the raid. None of them expect they're about to encounter a form of evil that goes beyond anything a human being would be capable of. The SWAT team moves out when they get the okay from the police captain, running down below the bridge with their assault rifles at the ready and their tactical armor tightly fastened. They brace themselves for gunshots that never come. Instead, they happen upon something stuck to the walls and ceiling underneath the bridge. Some of the SWAT team members yell in horror. At least one of them immediately vomits into his tactical helmet. Another egg sack, containing hundreds of glowing multicolored eggs glued to the walls and ceilings by some kind of translucent mucus. In amongst the eggs, multiple people, some long dead, some freshly dead, some barely clinging to life. All the missing people, captured and glued in, warm, nutritious meals for the babies as soon as they hatch. And given that the eggs responding to the SWAT team's presence begin to shake and shudder, they may be getting their breakfast sooner rather than later. But the horrors aren't confined to places deep and dark. Nobody will be spared from the nightmare that's about to hit an unprepared New York. Far from the city, on the southern tip of Long Island, families relax and play on beautiful Montauk Beach. One pair of parents relaxes on deck chairs, watching their children play in the shallow waters in the distance. This is the life, not a care in the world. Until they see one of their children abruptly collapse in the water, and the other one starts screaming in pure terror. The parents leap out of their deck chairs in a flash and run down towards the water. Neither knows what's going on, but both are terrified. When they reach their children, the one who's still conscious screams about how the other just collapsed after touching this weird rock that washed ashore. As the mother grabs her unconscious child and drags him back onto the beach, the father, frozen in confusion and terror, looks down to see the weird rock that his child touched. It's bright green, and the water around it bubbles. But it isn't a rock. It's an egg. And through its thin shell, the father can see something with many legs moving, shifting, and growing. Simply touching it gave his son an incredibly dangerous dose of radiation. He looks up as his wife calls for him, crying and screaming, but he can't look at her. He looks out to the sea, where it looks like so many more of these awful, glowing eggs are washing ashore. And what's worse, they look about ready to hatch. Not everyone is entirely unprepared for the horrors that are about to unfold. Some know exactly what they're risking, but arrogantly choose to ignore those risks in the pursuits of greed and power. A secret government lab has collected over 100 of the eggs after the Choo Choo Charles rampage all those years ago, still believing that perhaps if they raised and manipulated one of these creatures from birth, they could truly control them and turn them into a viable biological weapon for use in warfare. Groups of scientists crowd around the eggs in their testing rooms, wearing thick, shielded outfits designed to block as much radiation from the deadly eggs as possible. Too much exposure to one of those things, and if it doesn't kill you instantly, it's Cancer City a few years down the line. All the scientists involved know those risks, but they're shockingly ignorant of the other risk at hand, one that may be about to doom them all. As if all connected on some kind of shared cycle, the eggs begin to shake violently. Alarms sound, and heavily armored guards are alerted. Lockdown protocols seal the rooms, trapping the panicking, terrified scientists inside as they beat against the walls with their fists. But deep down, they know it's already too late for that. Poison gas seeps in through the vents, a precautionary measure, hoping that it will kill the creatures that are about to hatch before they can become a true threat. Instead, it just kills the trapped scientists. As they collapse and stop moving, the eggs continue to twitch and writhe. On the biggest of all the eggs, a crack begins to form, and something on the inside seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger. But none of the tens of thousands of people passing through Times Square know this. This bustling center of transport and commerce is always moving, always pulsing. Thousands of people walk under the lights of the electronic billboards, having no idea of the glowing things pulsing beneath their own feet, hidden under the thin layer of concrete and asphalt. Of course, it's eggs. Thousands and thousands of eggs. And the heat and rumbling of the cars are causing them to stir. The eggs rattle and begin to crack, exuding waves of deadly radiation. It's time. The eggs below Times Square burst open, and fetal Choo Choo Charles' spawn. Still covered in radioactive slime, they crawl out. But because of their radiation power, they don't stay small for long. They immediately get bigger and bigger and bigger, becoming huge and monstrous. And you can only imagine how hungry that kind of rapid growth would make you. Up in Times Square, the ground begins to shake, cars draw to a halt, and people wobble on their feet. The ground cracks and shatters. Hundreds of giant, radioactive monster Choo Choo Charles crawl out of the abyss. They begin smashing cars with their huge, blade-like legs and devouring unlucky pedestrians alive. And all over New York City and beyond, this same nightmarish story is unfolding again and again and again. In the sewers beneath the city, the eggs hatch, and the creatures that crawl out immediately transform into huge monster versions of themselves. Their bodies growing, their legs extending, their fangs lengthening. They devour the sewer workers, exploring the network of pipes, and continue to hunt down any living things they could find. Once they'd eaten everything in the sewer, they'd crawl topside too. The greedy slumlord in the basement of his tenement building doesn't survive for long. The monster Choo Choo Charles burst from the eggs and filled up the basement, eating him and then clawing their way up the building, where their next meals are too sick to escape or resist. Much like the poor doomed souls trapped inside the train car, as the eggs hatch around them, and the giant monster trains claw their way through the metal of the train to access the warm, terrified meals inside. Meanwhile, the SWAT team under the bridge try their best to shoot at the advancing crowd of train beasts with their assault rifles, but it doesn't do them any good. Just as a legion of freshly hatched radioactive Choo Choo Charles stormed the beaches of Montauk, catching and eating frightened beachgoers by the dozen, there was nothing they could do. Just like the scientists and guards in the government building are quickly overwhelmed and eaten by the monsters they thought they could control. It's hatching day, and the new brood is only just getting started.